Here's every single document we needed to transport our cat into Europe. 2 months ago, we moved from Kuala Lumpur to Denmark, and if you've seen my last video, you would know how chaotic it was. Unlike the more common destinations such as North America, the UK, and Australia, Denmark's pet import requirements weren't as widely well documented, so we enlisted the help of a pet relocation agency in Kuala Lumpur just to help us with the bulk of the paperwork. And even so, we still did some of the steps ourselves. So in this video, I want to walk you through the process of obtaining the paperwork, the rest of the requirements, and also possibly how to get your pet or your cat into Europe as safely and affordably. First things first, we already knew that we were not going to do DIY because we already have our own paperwork to deal with. So we reached out to a couple of pet relocation agencies and asked them how much their door-to-door rate was. And they came back to us with the staggering amount of 12,000 to 15,000 ringgit. And that is just way over budget for us. That is the price of 2 business class tickets. And when you're relocating, you have to be smart with your money unless you're like a billionaire or whatever. That was not an option. Fortunately, we found an agency who was willing to do the paperwork, and they quoted us around 2,332 ringgit just for the paperwork, and another 212 ringgit for the European Health Certificate endorsement, which is another important requirement, but it's not included in the general services. If you have the network and the time to do it yourself, I think you can absolutely do it. Just reach out to your vet for the documents, health certificates, as well as the Nipah virus test, which is an essential part of this whole process. Otherwise, any reputable pet relocation agency can take it off of your hands so you can focus on other important things for your travel. Now for the actual requirements, here's a checklist. First up is the microchip, pet passport, annual core vaccines, and rabies vaccine. It is important to note that the rabies vaccine should be more than 21 days but less than a year. You can get all of these done at your vet. Next one is the Nipah virus test. It should be done 10 days before the flight date, and it must test negative. This is an important requirement for all the pets traveling to Europe. Next one is the documentation like the MAQIS inspection and other fees. Our agency arranged these for us. Next one is the health consultation and clearance. It must be done by a government veterinary office. In our case, it was done by DVS. And lastly is the endorsed EU health certificate, which also serves as your import documentation. So for the Nipah virus testing process, they are going to be extracting blood from your pets, so make sure that you fast them from 8 to 12 hours. It depends on the vet's instructions, but basically do not feed them wet or fatty foods and just give them high protein foods. Actually, the hardest part of the process for us, because we failed the test 2 times. Like the blood extraction just didn't pull through. We had to do it 3 times because the previous 2 times the vet was not very good. Eventually we had to transfer to another vet, and thankfully she done it right. And it was very stressful, not just for us but also for a cat, because he has to go through being sedated and getting his blood extracted, and also we had to fast him every other day just to get it done because we were already running out of time. Remember, you have to do it 10 days before the flight. And yeah, it was just, if we were just late for 1 or 2 days, it was gonna be quite expensive for us because it's gonna affect our whole itinerary, which was already paid for. For booking the flights, we actually had 2 options. First up, we have KLM Airlines, and the other one was Turkish Airlines. So we eventually went for Turkish Airlines because they had a layover in Istanbul, which is also known to have pet relief stations. Based on our experience, it's best to book the flights on the app so you can add the pet carriage fee. This is the amount an airline charges for transporting your pet during a flight. The fee depends on several factors such as in-cabin or checked baggage. For in-cabin, it's common for smaller pets that typically weigh under 15 to 20 pounds with a carrier and that can fit under the seat. The other one is the checked baggage, and it's for larger pets in the cargo hold, but they still do the check-in at the passenger counter. For us, since our cat weighed less than 8 kg, we went for the in-cabin option. Another thing to note is the size of the pet carrier. The carrier dimension should be 23 by 30 by 40 centimeters, and to be honest, we had a hard time trying to find the exact size. So we got a carrier that is 40 by 35 by 45. This was the closest size of a carrier that we got, and we were prepared to just negotiate with the airline staff in case they would not allow it. But so far, they didn't really measure the carrier, they just weighed the cat. When carrying a pet in economy, because we could only afford to fly economy, business class is out of the question, we had a problem. It was because you can only book standard seats if you have a pet. So it was something that we took into consideration, and we eventually decided to add an additional seat, which is the middle seat. And it really helped us throughout the flight because we didn't have to hassle other people, and we also had leg room for each of us, and it was just very hard if we also had a carrier in either of our spaces. But yeah, this is totally optional if you want to consider the comfort of your travel as well. As I mentioned, we had a 5-hour layover in Istanbul airport, and since it was our first time in the country, we didn't know that the security check was so different from Southeast Asia. So basically, they do the checks before you get to the boarding gates or the departure area. In Southeast Asia, we had security check for every boarding gate, right? Unless it's a small airport. So the process is like that. However, one of the security ladies, she was very rude. Maybe they do things here differently, and I respect that. It was just
my yard.
Wait.
All of you.
Daddy, chill.
another thing with the pet relief stations. They were quite hard to find. It was represented by a dog icon. It took us a long time to actually find it. It was located in the back of Louis Vuitton. That's it. If you ever go to the departure area, just find Louis Vuitton, and there's a couple of human washrooms there, and you will find the pet relief station. Overall, yeah, it was great. It's very clean. We loved it. It was just a maze to get there. So the second leg of our flight was pretty quick. When we arrived in Copenhagen, we went to their customs office, which was marked by a red sign. It was very near the exit area, so it's hard to miss. We went there and we declared that we are bringing in a cat. They checked for our paperwork, and it only took about like 5 to 10 minutes for them to check everything. After that, they stamped the papers and they gave it back to us. When we arrived in Denmark, we didn't really have any problems. It's a very pet-friendly country. We didn't have too much difficulty trying to find a hotel or a house, for example. Even transportation is very pet-friendly. They allow dogs and cats on the trains and the buses. Finally, here's a rough breakdown of our cost. So yeah, that's it. I wanted to create this video because I think there's not a lot of information available about transporting your pets. at least when I was doing my research, and I think someone could really use this as reference. Full disclaimer, I am speaking from our own experience and probably it's going to be different for everyone else. But if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something from this and I will see you on the next one. Bye!